Hey, welcome back to the Naked Conch Hour. Again, I'm your host, Matt Gardi. As mentioned, we were just talking about, so from the public records request about the health department's inventory I received from the clerk's office free of charge. Mr. Eadie in 2009 suggested I have this old equipment that was improperly disposed of. It was obsolete. And again, I just want to show for the viewing audience out there, there's sheet after sheet of equipment listed. And it's all relatively old, although some is from 2006. Most of them with Mr. Eadie's signature on it, so he knew about this long equipment that had disappeared, but that's fine. I give him that it was old equipment. But again, it totaled $227,000 worth of equipment, some being from 2006. Now, a point to bring up here also is the fact that this equipment, this is at the time it was discovered missing. We don't know when it went missing, according to Mr. Eadie. But again, he did also provide the recycling receipt that was part of the public records request from a year before, 2008. But he wasn't doing the deletion request until 2009. Now, my speculation is maybe it's because of the inventory guy was saying what happened to all your old equipment, and so they properly disposed of it. Now, that's okay. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's Mr. Eadie's responsibility. The recycling does not exactly correlate necessarily with the equipment that he lists, $227,000 of misplaced equipment, some of it from even 2006, but only a very small amount. Could have been defective equipment. I gave him that. But what happened next in the public records request was the very next year, there is an email from a Mr. Bula at the health department, and he states in this, as we discussed, after a thorough search of our facilities from Key Largo to Key West, a few MC-tagged assets did turn up. However, the majority of the MC-tagged assets have not been found. Now, this is the very next year. It's a letter from Andrew Burula to Mitch Hedman, the inventory gentleman at the clerk's office, and he said, "Well, we'll just fill out all these forms and we'll get this all taken care of, and don't worry, after this we'll be exemplary." Now, this kind of raised a bit of a question for me, because didn't we just hear that last year in 2009? Mr. Eadie had said this and said, "Hey, don't worry, we're cleaning this all up." But also, just so you show, this is the email that has, this is all on the blog at Naked Conch, in that email from Mr. Bula. But this page is weird in general. It came from the clerk's office. At the very top, almost kind of part of the email exchange, is a one line from Mary Vandenbroek that says, "One suggestion, add the present value as 0 or close to it." Now that draws a lot of questions. I didn't want to infer anything from that, but that kind of is an odd way to keep track of your inventory. And then below that, oddly, this page is like constructed versus actually being an email exchange. A different email, a date prior to it, and a different subject line, a reply from the inventory guy, "Hi Andrew, get in touch with me early next week and we'll do that." Now, it seems like that reply was not to his discussion of let's just get rid of these assets, and it seems like it was this page was a little contrived. But regardless, I said, well, I can always ask more questions, but these are the reasons I began to ask questions. Following that email was a short list of equipment that was found, which was the short list, which is kind of referenced in his email. But beyond that came a great concern to me. The concern was, you then had, and I don't know for the viewers out there if you can see what that looks like, a form with a ton of equipment. Pages of equipment that says need destruction form. And this time it's equipment from 2008. It's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment. There's another odd page that has, some say need deletion request form and out for repair. Again, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Following, that was directly after the email from Mr. Bula where he says the majority of MC tagged assets have not been found and we need to clean this up with deletion request forms. So I'm pretty concerned at this point. So there also was another kind of confusing list provided that was compiled in August 5th of that same year in 2010, and it had another list of missing 2 years from the health department, listing assets totaling $29,000. Very clear, missing 2 years. And again, a lot of it from 2007, some of it from 2002. So it could be partially obsolete, but a lot of good equipment totaling what I would think, it's close to $30,000 and probably over $10,000 of good equipment. Now my concern is just the year prior, Mr. Eadie had written a letter to the clerk's office saying, hey, we're going to get our act together on this. It's going to be all cleaned up. So I thought, well, maybe what I've got from the clerk's office doesn't correlate with what I got from the health department, so I made a public records request. Now, it's the duty of an agency to provide documents that are public information to the public free of charge unless it requires extensive IT or clerical staff. Those records are the public. Those records are, we own them. They should be made available. And granted, there are some limitations on what you can release based off of content, but for the most part, we should be able to get access to those records. I speak from experience as I frequently, as the IT director of the state attorney's office, perform public records requests. And one, never has the state attorney's office ever charged. Usually, if it's a couple of hours of work of mining information, providing information to the public, I work with other people on this, we get the information together and we provide that free of charge. And I think that's a great duty and service to the public as is expected by state statute. My public records request to Mr. Eadie, just so I could get a good grasp on their records in contrast to what I just showed you. I asked for one, the Monroe County Health Department's copy of the last 3 years of Monroe County inventory reports for the Monroe County Health Department as prepared by Mitch Hedmond. And I then asked for any email exchange, because you remember that email exchange that kind of had some questions. I said any email exchange between Andrew Brula, Mary Vandenbroek, Brian Blair, Mitch Hedman, and or yourself during the month of July 2010 that contain the words missing MCHD assets in the subject line. I was being very specific. I want to know. So to me, I'm an IT guy. Might have taken 10-15 minutes to do those kind of searches. Even if your discovery method isn't very easy, you could even go to people's mailboxes, do some searches for them. I'm not saying it's quick, but it's a few. I'd say it'd take a little while to do that, but I was very specific, wasn't vague. What I was really trying to do is see what was the true email chain in that document that I had got from the clerk's office. And then I also said, I asked for any record maintained by the health department that reflects or discusses missing inventory or assets, and a copy of any policy that may have been developed, because Mr. Eadie claims he developed a policy so it wouldn't happen again. And maybe those records just don't exist. I didn't want them to go through, hey, just say, okay, they don't exist. If there was no records discussing assets, which we frequently do. Hey, we're not required to create a record. We're created to provide. We're required to provide a record should one exist. Well, the very couple days later, and that was on March 13th. A couple days later, I received one. I quickly got a response from Mary Vandenbroek of the health department, who is the Administrative Services Director. She got back to me and she gave me a section of Florida statute that said, here's Florida Statute 119.07. If the nature or volume of the public records requested to be inspected or copied pursuant to this subsection is such as to require extensive use of information technology resources or extensive clerical or supervisory assistance by personnel of the agency involved or both, the agency may charge. Now that is true, but I guess that depends on your evaluation of extensive. I asked for 3 years of inventory, which to me I could pull out of my desk, scan to an email in about 5 minutes. I asked for what I think would have been about 10 to 15 minutes of searching email accounts, and I asked for any policies, really. Here was her reply, though. The time required to locate this is 4 hours of IT at $35 an hour, 4 hours of business staff at $31 an hour, and supervisory review by our business manager, myself, Mr. Eadie, and today is approximately 2.75 hours for a total of $135.82. So essentially, they were charging for the administrative review of my public records request, which I said, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to spend money on this. I know as someone who's provided public records, I would have done that pretty much for free, aside from the cost of duplication. And our office does that all the time. The statute's required. It's the intent of the statute. In fact, the statutes say it's the duty of an agency to provide public records. So I thought they were building walls. And I still had some pretty legitimate questions, as you saw before, with the extensive equipment that was listed, following Mr. Beulah's email that said the majority of MC tagged assets assets could not be found. So we're going to come right back after break. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Naked Conch Hour. Again, those documents are available on nakedconch.com. Check us out and come right back in just a moment.